There we go. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Board of Directors regular meeting of the Mission Springs Water District, October 18th, 2021. I will call this meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance. The flag, please. Oh, we got one here, don't we, behind us? Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will say the invocation. We ask the Heavenly Father in thy infinite wisdom to guide the members of this board in such a way that all their thoughts, endeavors, and decisions will be made for the betterment of the entire community. We also beseech thee to protect our country and our people from all conflicts, both foreign and domestic.
Amen.
Amen. Roll call, please.
Director Sewell.
Here.
Director Grasha.
Here.
Director Duncan.
Here.
Vice President Martin.
Here.
President Wright.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Thank you. Rules of procedure, Mr. Pinckney.
Yes, according to the rules of procedure adopted by this board, all notice meetings are conducted using Rosenberg's Rules of Order as a procedural guideline. The president is responsible for maintenance of order and decorum in all board meetings. No person should be allowed to speak who has not first been recognized by the president. No member of the board should speak more than once upon any one subject until every other member of the board wishing to speak on the subject shall have been given an opportunity to do so. No board member shall interfere with the orderly progress of a board meeting. The board president regulates the amount of time to be dedicated to a particular agenda item.
Thank you. Any public input for items not on the agenda today, Dory?
Yes, ma'am. Before we launch into that, Mr. Betts, are you here to make public comment? Oh, he seems to have disappeared. The only one I have for public comment is Pamela Edmondson.
Hi, Pamela. You're on.
Pamela, can you hear us?
Hi, Pamela. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
She seems to have dropped the line.
She has her hand up. She's on mute.
Yeah.
She's still there, but I don't know.
Pamela,
Hello,
are you
Pamela. No,
able to mute yourself?
you are on mute or something. Is that a mute sign? I'm not
Yes.
sure what that is.
Yes.
That is a mute. There is two members. Oh, Mr. Betts and Pamela.
Yeah,
Dory,
Mr.
what's the
seems to have
issue?
dropped the line again. He seems to have trouble with his connectivity. Pamela, can you hear us?
Technical difficulties on the Zoom
Yeah.
meeting. What's a Zoom meeting without technical difficulties?
There we go.
Thank you.
Hi,
Go ahead,
Pamela.
Pamela.
I think I was
welcome.
hitting *9 instead of *6. Thank you so much for letting me make a couple of brief comments here. These have to do with accessibility issues, and I've had trouble finding the agenda online and did speak with Brian. It is better. I still need to maybe do a little bit of work with it, and I don't know. I know you have a rule that if you need inaccessibility issues in order to attend the meeting, which you don't have the meetings there in person anymore, but I don't know if I should be calling 48 hours ahead of time and saying, can you help me with this if I get stuck trying to get onto the website? Or a lot of times too, I don't even get the emails 48 hours in advance. I think the one from Monday came over on Friday and I didn't see it until later in the day. So any help that can be given with this is greatly appreciated. Secondly, my other issue that I would like to bring up is the new website that's going to be going online, or not the new website per se, but the new customer, I'm going to call it the customer portal, where you can go on and look at your bill and make your payments. I'd kind of spoken with Brian about this, and he was working with an expert too. And they said they might give me a call. It may be too early until November to do so, but I am willing to work with them as much as possible and make sure it is accessible. Now, my credit union, whenever they're switching up their website, will give us notice and say they're going to have a new website, and they'll let me go in and test it ahead of time. So I'm just wondering if I can do that, and I would really like to test out this new customer portal and, to make it as accessible as possible. So basically, that's all I have to say, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Pamela, and we'll have somebody get back with you on all that, okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else ready? Dory?
No, ma'am, nobody else ready for public comment. If Russell Betts logs back on, I will ask him privately if he wishes to make comment.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, item number 6, COVID-19 update. We had that on Thursday. Brian, do you have anything new or anything on that?
No, nothing more to add.
Okay, human resources report. We have a couple of anniversaries. We actually have 3 new hires for the facility maintenance lead, an innovation and technology manager, which is Kurt Kettenbach. Hey, Kurt. Kettenecker. All right. And Marion Champion. Marion is our new director. So was she program and public affairs manager. Welcome all of you to MSWD. Anniversaries, we have Boss Bassam. Okay, Al Zammer and Danny Friend. So Bassam's been here for 3 years. He's field operation manager. Danny is director of engineering and operations, and he's not here. He's on vacation, I believe. So
Correct.
correct. So I'll kind of give it to you, Brian, and let you kind of go from there and see if Jeff or anybody wants to say anything.
I believe that we do have Bassam and Jeff both would like to speak on Tim's behalf. Bassam? I see that he's on mute. I guess, Jeff, would you like to introduce Tim?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Brian. Here in my office, I have Tim Newman. He is the new hire for the facility maintenance lead worker in water production. He comes with a vast, experiences from other water agencies, such as the city of Colton and also the city of Redlands. We welcome all of his experience and what he can do to help out the department. Bassam?
Hey, good afternoon, Madam President, Board of Directors. Just reiterating what Jeff said, Tim does come to us with a lot of experience in the water industry, specifically production maintenance and mechanical maintenance. He does a lot. He's done a lot of work with pumps, motors, reservoirs, everything that we do here at Mission Springs. So we welcome him and look forward to some of the cool things that we're going to get to do in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Kurt is with us. He's been hired. He's our new innovation technology manager. He's sitting right here in our boardroom. He works on all the technical difficulties for us. So, anybody want to say anything?
Yes, I'll take this opportunity. Thank you, Madam President. Yes, Kurt has worked with the district for the last 8 years, and it was a pleasure to bring him on board. He's already made significant changes in our in how we do many things here and trying to make us more efficiently. One of the things that you're looking at as far as our meeting is the cameras and things like that, as well as other safety enhancements we're going around the building. It's an absolute pleasure to have him on board again. Kurt, is there anything you'd like to say? Fantastic.
Okay, and then go ahead. You want to go ahead?
Okay. The other employee that I'd like to mention is Marion Champion. She has significant experience in the water industry. She worked 18 years at IID, doing both their water and their electric programs and outreach and things of that nature. And then most recently, 3 years at the College of the Desert. Marion, would you like to say anything?
Just thank you, Assistant General Manager Macy. I'd like to just say thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here with everyone here at Mission Springs. You've been very welcoming, and I'm very excited about the opportunities here at the district. Thank you.
And she will be reaching out to Pamela to talk about the website and the portal
in the next coming days. That was one of the things that Pamela talked about, was once Marion came on board, to make sure she reaches out and walks her through the website and things of that nature. I apologize, Vice President Martin, go ahead.
It's okay. I just wanted to say that I've attended a couple of meetings where Marion has been at and done a presentation, and she did an excellent job representing the Water District.
And then as far as anniversaries, Bassam's been with us for 3 years. Been doing a fantastic job with our operations group, making a lot of improvements, as well as we see in later here in the agenda, the wastewater treatment facility coming up. Danny's not here today, but we'll bring him back up in November when he is back from vacation, and we'll let, obviously being here 24 years, 16 of those with our GM. So I'm sure our GM will say a lot of words about Danny at that time.
Okay. Since neither one of them are here, we'll wait till next meeting. Okay. Congratulations, everybody. And thank you for all your service, your years of service, and helping make MSWD be successful, which it is. Okay. Action items. And number 8, resolution 2021-16. It's a resolution of the Board of Directors of Mission Springs Water District proclaiming local emergency, ratifying and proclamation of a state emergency by Governor Gavin Newsom on March 4th, 2020, and authorizing remote teleconference meetings of the legislative bodies of Mission Springs Water District for the period of October 18th, 2021 through November 18th, 2021, pursuant to the Brown Act provisions. This is something we'll be doing every month until we aren't, till the governor decides we aren't. Anyway, so I will entertain a motion to approve.
Move the,
Not to approve, to go ahead.
move the staff recommendation.
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Director Sewell,
Yes.
Director Grasha,
Yes.
Director Duncan,
Yes.
Vice President Martin,
Yes.
President Wright.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. The number 9, a First Amendment to contract amendment with Pay Near Me. Does any of the board members have any other questions on that? We took it up on Thursday.
No.
Mr. Grasha?
No questions, and I move the staff recommendation.
Okay, is Randy here, by the way? I don't see him.
He is.
Oh, there you are, Randy. Oh, hi, Mr. Duncan. You're right next to Steve. Okay.
I'm hard to miss. Come on, all this. No questions on.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. I need a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Director Sewell,
Yes.
Director Grasha,
Yes.
Director Duncan,
Yes.
Vice President Martin,
Yes.
President Wright.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item number 10, acceptance of grant of easement deed for public water utilities for Desert Willows Property Owners Association. Any questions or anything?
No.
Director Grasha, any more questions on this one?
No questions. Thank you.
Director Duncan?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I move to accept the grant easement.
Second. I'll second it.
Director Sewell beat you to the punch.
You got it. You got the first and second,
I do,
right?
yes.
Roll call vote, please.
Director Sewell,
Yes.
Director Grasha,
Yes.
Director Duncan,
Yes.
Vice President Martin,
Yes.
President Wright.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item number 11, award of contract for the Regional Water Reclamation Facility Project and Capital Budget Augmentation. This one is exciting. This one is like history in the making for us.
I'd like to move the staff recommendation, please.
All right. Okay, I have a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion is second on the floor. I just would like to say that I'm pretty excited about the grant money. We have already been, as Steve Ledbecker said on Thursday, we've already been approved for a $16 million grant and a 0.9% interest rate loan for the project. And looking at, we've qualifying for more grant money out of a different pot, up to, what was it, up to the 40,000? Up to the 40
40
million,
million,
40
yeah.
million, excuse me,
Yeah,
up to the
33.1.
40 million.
Yeah.
So, well, that we will hear about probably pretty soon. We'll see how that goes, but we are already approved for the 16 million and the 0.9%. So I will entertain a motion to recommend. the
Move
staff
staff
approval.
We've
recommendation.
got a motion
Staff
and a
recommendation.
second.
Pardon, Dory?
We've got a motion and a second.
We have, oh, I'm sorry, you, Dory. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Director Sewell,
Yes.
Director Gracia,
I had a couple of comments, but yes,
Director Duncan,
Comments or questions?
Yes.
questions, I guess. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay,
It's okay, finish.
Vice President Martin,
Yes.
and President Wright.
aye.
Thank you. Motion
Okay,
passes.
I will award you a time to say, if you'd like to say a couple of things about that.
Well, I had a conversation with Brian Macy, the Assistant General Manager, and it was productive, and I wanted to kind of attempt to recreate that for the public that might come to pay attention to this down the road, and that how this is funded through the agency. None of this funding, is my understanding, comes from what you pay on your water bill. This all comes from specific funds that are, and perhaps Brian or somebody from finance might chime in on that and make sure I don't step in it. But so I'm much happier with being able to support this with that information.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so item number 12, Critical Service Center and Administration Building Update. Mr. Macy.
I do not have anything to add to the presentation that I gave on Thursday, other than one simple modification. We talked about a specific dates where we were looking at possibly going to East Valley and visiting that facility and reaching out to them. They have construction in front of their property until November 5th. Have asked us to push it out 2 more weeks. So it's going to be the doodle poll that we'll send out will be November 8th through the 19th. So I'll be reaching out to you, or Dory and I will be reaching out to you to set that up in that
Okay.
time frame. Thank you.
Great, thanks. 8, okay, thanks. Okay, item number 13, informal presentation on process for adjustment of division boundaries following release of 2020 census information. I'll turn this over to you, Mr. Pinckney.
So with the updated census information, there are certain obligations that the district has, given that it previously decided to update its map. And so Misty Calder from my firm is going to be making a very brief presentation via Zoom, and she should be on the Zoom meeting now. Misty, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to try to keep this short. I know you've got a lot of things on. Let me pull up my PowerPoint presentation here so I can share my screen with you. Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
Perfect, okay. And this is in addition to the agenda staff report that we had already sent to you to look at, but which also tells you about the process for the adjustment of the division boundaries based on the release of the new census data. But so just very briefly, and I'm not going, there's a lot to districting, and luckily we're the Mission Springs is going to be hiring a David Eli, who is a demographer and is going to obviously be doing a lot of this stuff. But just very briefly for you folks to understand the process. So every 10 years, agencies with by district election systems, they must use the new census data to review and if needed, because sometimes it's not even necessary, but redraw the electoral division lines to reflect how local populations have changed. And this is the process that's called redistricting. And it comes from the California Voting Rights Act, as well as the Federal Voting Rights Act. And as you all know, Mission Springs transitioned back in 2019. I think it was official in 2000, but transitioned from at-large to by district elections. And based on that, now there are 5 there are 5 districts that have been drawn based on the current information that we had on the last districting. And this is obviously what was adopted on June 24th, 2020. This is the final adopted division map, and breaking it up into 5 districts. And this is what may ultimately change depending on how the redistricting is done based on the new census data. Based on the redistricting process, so there's special rules for cities, counties, and special districts. And as you'll see down here, I said it's much easier. We as special districts have it a lot easier than cities and counties. So if you're talking with other governmental agencies, other cities or counties, and you're hearing about their process, it's going to be a lot more extensive than what you all have to do. They've started this at least in February there because it requires multiple public outreach with the community, multiple public hearings so that they can take into account what the public is, any advice that the community has on the districting process. So for special districts, they're really the only thing that applies is under the California Voting Rights Act, and also the U.S. Constitution, which everybody has to comply with, which is like not that the district lines can't be drawn with race as the predominant factor. Equal in population as much as possible. It doesn't have to be exact, but as much as possible. Topography, that's really the detailed mapping of the features of a district. So like mountains, rivers, creeks. Geography, that concerns the nature and effect geography has on people and the environment. So for example, and these are things that would be on a map, like landforms, but they also take into account climate, soil, natural vegetation. And this is all things that a demographer looks at when they're drawing up the map. And so, for example, the peaks and valleys of the Rocky Mountains would form a physical region that would be a geographical feature that should be looked at when you're drawing division lines. So then there's this cohesiveness, contiguity, integrity, and compactness of the territory. And these are things specifically related that special districts need to look at. Cohesiveness is the districts need to be interconnected and explainable. Contiguity is that an area that is one whole piece of that's literally contiguous. So I guess the best way to explain it is like Treasure Island's not literally contiguous to San Francisco, but it's functionally contiguous. But 2 houses on either side of the 101 could be literally contiguous, but it's not functionally contiguous. So when mapping and putting these district lines in, you got to take that into account. Integrity means kind of what you think it would mean. It's the trustworthiness of the mapping information that's on there. Compactness, that the definition of that is not bypassing nearby population areas in favor of more distant populated areas. And to do this, demographers look at several different things like the ratio of the circumference of a district and the areas of the district, measuring the numbers of the distant straight lines and the kinks and the bends, but you don't want funny slopes. And when they're drawing the lines, they would like to be as straight as possible. And finally, there's the community of interest that they look at. And this is populations that share common social or economic interests that should be included in a single district for purposes of fair representation. So that would be groups that share the same cultural or characteristics, geographic nature of the density. So for example, communities covered under the Voting Rights Act is like Latinos, Asians, African Americans. Those are different social groups that need to be considered. And so those are, to name a few, but political parties is not part of the community of interest that you look at. So next steps. Okay, that's just kind of briefly what the demographer is going to be looking at. So Mission Spring has already retained the services of the demographer, David Eli of Compass Demographics, who did the previous mapping for Mission Springs. So luckily he's coming aboard to help us again. Then Mission Spring has to conduct at least one public hearing to receive testimony and comments from its board members and the public. So this is the only public outreach that special districts have to do, unlike, like I said before, on cities and counties that have to have actually multiple of these public hearings. But special districts only need to do one. And with that information, our demographer is then going to take the information from the board as well as the public and of course the census data, and rework the map to see if it's necessary to make any changes. Once this map is done, there's a second public hearing that's going to need to be scheduled to consider the proposed division boundaries, boundary adjustments, and then adoption of the revised boundary maps like we did on the previous map. And I believe Mission Springs did that by ordinance last time, so it will need to be done by ordinance again. So keep that in mind on timing, because you need obviously 2 readings for an ordinance at 30 days apart. So when factoring in this last segment, which is our deadline, everything has to be done. The whole redistricting process has to be done by April 17th, and that includes the adoption of the ordinance. So that's kind of what's going on right now. And like I said, we're at the beginning stages of now getting the demographer on board, and hopefully soon do the public hearing to receive testimony from the public.
And the only thing I would add to what Misty said is that the demographer that we worked with previously, David Eli, we've reached out to him. He has not started work on this yet, but he'll be guiding it as the demographer as he did last time. And then ultimately it'll come to you as a board for your input and decision.
Sorry.
You showed 2 maps, I think slide 3 and 4. Was one just a close-up of the first?
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't have my speaker on. Excuse me, I didn't have my thing on, my microphone on. I was asking other directors, Director Gracia, hang on a minute. Vice President Martin?
No, I have nothing to add.
Director? Okay, go ahead. Now you can do it. Sorry, my voice thing wasn't on.
There were 2 maps on your presentation. Was one different from the other, or that was a little slightly confusing on that?
Apologize. It was the one that's on your website that I took verbatim that said adopted, and it was a 2-pager, and that's why yes.
Because the second one just looked like a more close-up version of the same one. I didn't see any changes. I thought you were submitting what you were recommending as a new map, and I didn't see any changes. So
no. Yeah, and in fact, it hasn't been done yet at all. So there's no recommendations at this point on a new map.
Okay, good. And what have there been any rulings set down by the court in California on this subject of, say, what could be considered topographical, like is a freeway considered absolutely you can't go from one side of the freeway? Are there any absolutes, or are we just because it all sounds kind of wishy-washy and everybody's sounds like they're just hoping they don't get sued? Is that what?
On a lot, some of these that topography has absolutely wishy-washy. There's not a lot, but the good news is there hasn't been a lot of cases where people have been sued. The biggest litigated area is community of interest. A ton of litigation in that category. It's, you know, and it's one where you have to keep the different social groups in mind, and on how districts lines are drawn. A lot of times litigation has popped up saying they were drawn unfairly. So in terms of topography, no, not a lot of litigation at all, or if any. I haven't seen any, to be quite honest, but definitely the community of interest is the one to look out for.
Well, let's talk about that, because that was my next area of thought. What the social demographic, the Hatfields and McCoys, we're never going to have the Hatfields in district with the McCoy. What does all that mean? You talked about ethnicity a little bit, but on the other hand, you're not allowed to really consider that, or are you really? And we're just, can you kind of zoom in on that a little?
Sure. So how the Voting Rights Act kind of categorizes it, they put it into groups: Latinos, Asians, African Americans, but they also, there's a lot of other groups that districts are allowed to look at. LGBTQ communities, senior citizens or college students, downtown urban areas. Those would also be communities of interest and people having it. Rural versus agricultural, or homeowners or renters. So there's a lot of different, I think a lot of the litigation has come from, different, the African Americans and, those type of groups, but there's actually a lot of different categories to look at. But you're right, it's one of those, which I think is why it's heavily litigated, because it's kind of a minefield, because in one sense, you don't want to, you don't want to discriminate, and so you're doing this community of interest to not discriminate. But I do think it's a fine line, and you can't obviously though make a determination of the district boundaries based on race or either. So but it's more of just communities, and not necessarily because this community is African American, you shouldn't draw the line on that, but instead on commonalities, maybe not religious beliefs, but just just on cultural, I guess, is more of what they look at.
Well, one of the things that is of interest in our district is whether or not Desert Hot Springs would be considered a community of interest, separate from Palm Springs. My belief is that it would be almost a separate community of interest. Than I know you've got Division I sliced up, all by itself, and because of it being seemingly to me a community of interest, I don't really find anything to argue about that, although I personally would like to have a piece of it for my own division, but it's not the argument I'm trying to make here. Would two cities be considered separate communities of interest? Because it seems like it would to me. Or does that fall in, well, you don't split HOAs into either, I hope. I don't know. Would you, or
No, I don't think so. And these are tough, because the demographer is probably better to answer some of these because they look at this all the time. But just based on case law, on the legal end of it, I agree with you. I don't think, I think cities would be kind of a different community of interest than other groups, the other cities.
All right. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Director Duncan?
No, actually, she just answered my questions, but this really seems like it's a case of do the best you can, because no matter which way you go, somebody can pick it apart if they really want to, whether you're going by, old or new or expensive homes, cheap homes, race, religion. I mean, you can pick it apart. So yeah, I guess you just do the best you can and go with it.
I agree with that.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. And these questions, when we do pick our demographer, when we hire them, when
We've worked with him in the past
Right.
and we've reached out to him and he's expressed a willingness to work with us again. And I think David Eli is one of the best demographers in the country.
yeah, that's what I've heard too. So we'll get to answer those questions maybe a little deeper when he comes in on the scene. So, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Misty.
Thank you.
Okay, consent agenda items 14, 15, and 16. You want to pull any? You want to pull any?
No, not at this time.
No.
None
Director
for me.
Duncan, Director Grasha.
No,
Okay, Lord Dory, is there anybody on the line there that wants to speak on that issue on any 14, 15, or 16?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Roll call vote, please.
Director Sewell,
Yes.
Director Grasha,
yes,
Director Duncan,
Yes,
Vice President Martin,
Yes.
President Wright.
Aye,
Thank you. Motion passes.
thank you. Director's reports. Who wants to start? Vice President Martin.
I have a few meetings.
A few meetings, okay. Well, we'll start with you then.
Okay. On the 10th of September, attended the Greater Coachella Valley Chamber of Commerce All Valley Mayor's Luncheon. It was very well attended. It's nice to see what's occurring in the different cities, different jurisdictions. On the 14th, I attended the Desert Hot Springs Planning Commission meeting. It was pretty routine business. It didn't have the fireworks I was anticipating based on the city council meeting of the 7th. On the 16th, Desert Valley Builders Association Networking Night at Tiles Designs by FINA in Palm Desert. That was a well-attended event. On the 16th, Countywide Oversight Board, pretty much routine business. On the 22nd, the Agua Caliente Water Authority Board meeting, we went over the fiscal report and the conceptual groundwater model reports. The 27th, Cabot's Foundation Board meeting. And we have two new board members, a gentleman by the name of Haddon Libby and Michael Seary, two additional board members. On the 7th City Council meeting, there was an ordinance amending, streamlining process of appeals of directors' decisions on commissions, etc. Discussion regarding proposed ordinance for illegal dumping. And there was fireworks that I previously mentioned on possible action regarding changes to the makeup of the current Planning Commission board. For some reason, that particular commission gets a lot of contentious interaction. On the 8th Urban Water Institute, there were some excellent presentations on the Colorado River, the drought, on cybersecurity, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. On the 14th, Riverside County Board of Supervisors, the main issue or the item of interest was the zoning changes that are taking place in the county. And it was interesting that our legal counsel could have given a very excellent presentation on that subject as well. On the 15th, Desert Valley Builders Association Public Works Luncheon, there was a presentation by Ryan Stendell, who's a Public Works Director for Rancho Mirage. He is an excellent public speaker. It was a very interesting presentation. On the 21st, City Council meeting, nothing to report there. On the 28th, Riverside County Board of Supervisors, or public comments opposing the vote by mail ballots. And there was additional discussion on the redistricting process. There is approximately, the way they have it set up now, 440,000 population per each of the 5 districts in Riverside County. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. So who else do we have on here? You did yours last time, correct? Okay, Mr. Duncan.
In there. Okay, it's off. All right. Okay, chronological order here. Urban Water Institute. Down in Santa Monica, one with Russ Martin. I'll let him cover the actual conference. I sit on that board, and what looks good is really not all that good because it's not sustainable. But they ended the year with $194,000 in the bank, which is way up from where it used to be, almost double. And they're attributing that to the fact that they still had conferences, but they didn't have in-person conferences. They were by Zoom meeting, and they were wired in or phoned in, if you will. But they know that can only happen once or twice. People are already saying they're not going to do it again. So they got a bunch of money, but it looks good in the bank, but it's not sustainable that way. Second thing, I got September 21st, which we just heard from our own attorney. DWA has also started their adjustment of division boundaries, or looking at it, whether they need to or not, whether they're going to stay the same. That's their first division. One thing I picked up on that meeting that I don't remember picking up here was it only requires two public meetings rather than the 4 or 5 that we had last time around. One more thing I picked up at the Urban Water Institute. Part of the conference itself was cuts to the Colorado River in water distribution are going to start January 1st, 2022. So what that means to us, nobody really knows. What kind of ratio, how they're going to do cuts to the Colorado River to offset cuts from the Delta, they don't know. But January 1st is the date that it's going to happen. And that's all I have for notes. As you can see, I have fresh paint on the walls back here. So everything from my office is in a box. If I missed any meetings, I will make them up next month.
Okay, I don't see any. Okay, thank you. I also have on there that I missed last Thursday, the Aqua's groundwater committee meeting, groundwater management committee meeting, and they did another great write-up about that meeting. And that was it's probably in your packet. I believe it's supposed to be in your packet. They can do a much better job than I did, but there was a couple of items that was kind of interesting. I'll just say that the topics is that the Sigma versus land use, they're starting to talk about that and look at how that's becoming very something that they need to start talking about and looking at, and how that's going to pan out, how the land use agencies are going to be looking at having to deal with Sigma. And the another one of the topics was groundwater and drought. What's going on with the updates on the state on their groundwater issues and the drought issues, and how are these two going to collide? Anyway, so there is a nice report in your packet about that meeting. Very worthwhile reading. Okay, so now we will go on to the general manager's reports, who's not here, but we have our assistant general manager, Mr. Macy.
In addition to what we discussed on Thursday, there are 2 issues I'd like to address. The first one would be the web portal. I believe April can provide an update to where we are with the rollout of the web portal. April?
Good afternoon, Madam President, directors of the board.
Hi, April.
Hi, happy belated birthday, by the way. So with the contract now being approved with Pay Near Me, the integration time that they've given us is 60 to 90 days. So it does delay the launch of the portal that time frame. But what we're doing during that time is focusing on the quality control, data transfers, assuring that everything is the same between Neptune 360, which is the portal that we can view a customer's usage, and is it transferring over to the portal correctly, making sure new accounts, everything's showing up as it should. So we are in that phase. We are very close. The next step will be training with the staff. And as soon as that payment portal is integrated, we will be able to launch. So it should be by the end of the year. And we're very excited to be able to present it to you.
Is there any questions from the board regarding the web portal?
No,
Okay.
thank you. Looking forward to that.
And the last item we would like to invite you to the upcoming workshop presenting the Mission Creek Subbasin Alternative Plan Update required for compliance with the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. The public workshop number 4 will be held on next Wednesday, the 27th, from 2 to 4. We'll be sending out contact information and the team's meeting invite as well. So look for that in your emails. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. District Council comments?
Yes, just briefly. Today you adopted a resolution implementing AB 361. And so I just briefly wanted to point out some of the benefits of that resolution that the board approved today. As you know, under the old system of the Brown Act, before the governor adopted an emergency order, and now with AB 361, when you had somebody attend remotely, we have 2 board members attending remotely, and historically you would have to put their address on the agenda that we would post, and they would have to post the agenda at the location they were attending from. They would have to let the public attend from that remote location. And under this resolution, it just helps facilitate people attending remotely. So agendas need not be posted at all teleconference locations. Each teleconference location need not be identified in the agenda packet for the meeting. Each teleconference location need not be accessible to the public, as was the case under the former rules, pre-COVID rules. And a quorum of the members of the legislative body do not need to participate in the meeting from locations within the boundaries of the territory over which the public agency exercises jurisdiction. And then also
Would you say that last thing again that you just said, please?
well, under the old rules, you had to have a majority, you had to have a quorum of the board present within our jurisdiction. And that's not the case now.
It's not the case.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it expires, AB 361 expires or sunsets on January 1, 2024. Each notice of the meeting and agenda must identify the means by which members of the public may access the meeting and offer public comment by a call-in option or an internet-based service option, which we do, and we have been doing since our COVID rules were implemented. You cannot require the public to submit comments in advance of the meeting. The public must be able to comment via either the call-in option or the internet option. And the public must be able to address the legislative body in real time directly via either the call-in option or the internet option. And then also I wanted to point out that if there's a disruption that prevents the board from broadcasting the meeting using either the call-in option or the internet-based option, or if there's a disruption within our control that prevents members of the public from offering public comments using either the call-in or internet-based option, we're prevented from taking any further action on items appearing on the agenda until public access has been restored. So that's just something to keep in mind if we ever have technical problems that are controllable on our end. If somebody is having an issue with their phone, that's one thing that's attending remotely. But if we're having problems, we need to stop the meeting and not take action until we restore the ability of members to attend. So
That's why you said that earlier when we were having technical difficulties.
Exactly.
Yes, got it. Okay, thank you. Director's comments, Vice President Martin.
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Director Sewell.
Yes, I had one. I wanted to just say thank you to Marion and any staff that helped put together the calendar drawing contest for the K through 12 students. With COVID, I know a lot of our interaction with the youth through our field trips and different activities has been postponed. So it's good to see some kind of interaction with our students, teaching them the value of our water. And so thank you, and I'm excited to see the final product.
Yeah, me too. We've had a couple of those in the past, and they're a lot of fun. Director Grasha,
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Director Duncan.
Yeah, real quick, happy belated birthday, Nancy. It was yesterday or today?
What? Oh, when was yours? Last week?
Right, yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that.
Well, yeah, mine was yesterday.
I gave up on counting. I don't know. Just wanted to say, I don't know if this treatment plant is the most expensive, high dollar item that I've ever voted on, but I think overall it's the most important. Definitely a landmark or something for the district. I don't know the right word, but history, I guess, in the making. So I'm glad we got that passed. Anxious to see that get started. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just have a question about October 21st, which I think is this coming Thursday, is the Great California Shakeout earthquake drill. Do we do anything on that day or anything, Brian?
We do not have anything scheduled at this particular time, but we do always look at our emergency response plan and make sure that our staff is familiar with that and things of that nature. So we do not do something specifically on that day, but in general, we're always trying to be prepared as much as we can be for an emergency.
Great, thank you.
And you mentioned the 21st. We also have the State of the City on the 21st. I think it's at 10 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, and apparently we have a table.
We do.
I won't be able to make it,
Oh,
so
okay.
you guys, I already told Dory, and you do have a table
We
full,
do.
from what I
do.
understand, yes.
Okay.
Great, sorry, I'm gonna miss it. Okay, so if nothing else, no closed session, correct?
No closed session. We do have a hearing on the writ trial in the Mission Springs Water District versus DWA case, and that's on the 29th of this month. And anybody that's Dory can provide you with a link if you want to listen into the hearing and to the arguments.
Are they still no people in the courtrooms?
I think this will be done. Some courts are allowing attendance in person. I don't know if this court is, or whether any of the attorneys will be attending in person or will be done entirely remotely. But as for the board members, if you're interested in observing, my recommendation would be to attend via the link.
Yes, okay, thank you. So without anything else, I will adjourn this meeting. Have a good week, you guys.